Welcome to the Simply Vegan podcast with me, Holly Johnson, and my co-host, Gabriella Clark. Each week we discuss the latest vegan news, taste test new products, and chat to some of the leading names in veganism. So, as always, we'll kick off today's podcast with our news and reviews, starting with the news that Asda has launched a vegan butcher's counter in its Watford store. This is running for 6 months as a trial, so everybody get down there and make use of it. Obviously, socially distancing and and all that malarkey as well. But yeah, I mean, how amazing would that be to have a vegan butcher's counter at every Asda store in the UK?
What an amazing commitment to veganism and making it accessible and innovative. I was having a look at the images shared on the Asda PR team's Instagram, and it looks really nice, really sleek, like a new way to shop for vegan products. And yeah, just a great idea, a great way to support veganism.
Yeah, and perfect for Veganuary this month. They've got on the counter, you can find bean burgers, which I wouldn't necessarily associate with kind of, they're not really faux meats, are they? But then they've got the bacon, meat-free meatballs, and even I think I saw mock lamb and vegan black pudding, which
Wow.
I'm not sure about those two, but I have had vegan black pudding before actually at a pub. Made from black beans. So, and it was nice, but I never would have eaten black pudding before I was vegan, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Would have been the same for me, not something I would have chosen as a meat eater, but have vegan friends who rave about it, the vegan options. So yeah, and I think, having these things out there, especially for people who are used to having the meat option in their diet, giving it a go, and maybe in a butcher counter environment, you're not so committed to buying like a big pack of burgers or a big pack of sausages that you might not necessarily eat or enjoy, and just trying the odd thing, easing your way into subbing out your usual meat with vegan options.
Yeah, and it's all quite low price as well, I think.
Yeah, really affordable.
And they've got the vegan cheeses on the counter, which is amazing, and sort of sauces and things like that. And alongside this, they will be launching 22 new vegan products. So a huge list, which includes chicken Kievs, chicken nuggets, roast chicken pieces, shawarma chicken pieces, beef strips, hoisin duckless wrap. The list goes on. Vegan chow mein, and even at the end of the list, vegan batter mix for banana blossom. Now that really stood out to me because have you ever had banana blossom fish and chips?
Yes, I have, in a restaurant actually.
Yeah, did you like it?
I did.
Yeah, I've had it at a local fish and chip shop. Yeah, it was kind of, I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't sure because they did these really nice tempura mushrooms, and I think sometimes I preferred the mushrooms to the banana blossom, but it was amazingly realistic and nice and natural.
Yeah, I think having this wealth of options. I have to say, I was in the supermarket on a Saturday and commented to my partner just the wealth of options that there is now. I mean, I know it's Veganuary, so there's a lot more there, and they're much more proudly displayed in store, easier to come by. But even in the 3-ish years since we've been vegan, the leap in what's available is just incredible.
What did we taste test this week? We taste tested Future Farms. So this is the leading meat in Brazil, vegan meat, should I say. And so we both had different products to try. Do you want to kick off with yours?
Yeah, so I had the vegan sausages and the vegan meatballs, and I have to say we were huge fans in our household. Mostly actually in terms of texture. So often with vegan meatballs or vegan sausages, they can be a lot softer
Yeah,
than,
I find that. Yeah.
yeah, a lot, not necessarily a mushier texture, but definitely a lot softer. And these ones had a very realistic texture. Not to the point where it would necessarily put me off. And I think because the flavor wasn't overly mock meaty, the texture just added a nice element to the dish and went kind of absorbed the flavors that we used. So we made a delicious spaghetti meatballs that really like bulked up the dinner and made it something different to what we'd normally have. And then yeah, sausages were just a great easy Saturday evening dinner. So we were quite big fans in our household, and actually really like the ethos behind the brand, like a brand coming out of Brazil, reading their kind of mission statement about trying to buy back the Amazon one product at a time. Just thought that was a really, really nice message, nice initiative. And I really do think the products would appeal to vegans as well as meat eaters because of how realistic they were.
Yeah, so this range has launched in Sainsbury's this month. So we are lucky enough to be some of the first people in the UK to try these products. Um, so yeah, I agree with the meatball thing. They do tend to go soft, don't they? So yeah, I'd be interested to try these then. I find I have to, if we do have vegan meatballs, we put them in the oven and then sort of just drop them into the sauce at the last minute, because otherwise they
Yeah,
just go mushy. So it's good to hear these sort of maintain their firm texture.
they definitely did. We just followed the instructions that said to kind of fry them up in a bit of oil in the pan, and then they went into a pasta sauce and then alongside the spaghetti. Really delicious, and kept their firmness, their texture. Nice, different addition for us, having not had a meatball in so long.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed them.
So I tried the other two products in the range, which were the Future Mince and the Future Burgers. The burgers are made with soy pea and chickpea proteins, and they're lovely and big. You know, sometimes you get your burger and it's just a little bit disappointing, isn't it? Yeah, lovely, big and meaty, and yeah, a real hit. I fed them to the boys in the house, and yeah, I would definitely buy those again. And then the mince, this again, it's made from soy pea and chickpea protein. So realistic, like freakishly realistic.
Really?
Yeah, it looks the same. It had the same texture. I mean, I really don't think a meat eater would know that they weren't eating real mince. Yeah, I
Wow.
don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing for me. Definitely someone who's, cutting out meat because, perhaps for the environmental reasons or for animal welfare. Um, yeah, it was just so realistic. I mean, it wasn't sort of, sometimes mince can be, as I remember rightly, if I remember rightly, sort of grizzly and slightly chewy sometimes. It wasn't like that.
Okay.
But it just really held its texture, um, not too soft, and yeah, it was very good. Just, if you're squeamish about meat, perhaps it's not for you. But if you just want a really good meat alternative, then yeah, give it a go.
That's definitely where I see this brand like a great option for people who really want a realistic meat alternative.
Yeah.
Even the sausages, they were kind of meant to be like very realistic pork sausage, and they were very pink.
Right.
Which was come from a beetroot powder, which made them
Ah.
that color. But if I saw them without the packaging, I'd definitely be thinking, I'm not sure these are vegan. Can I eat them?
Sending them back.
Yeah, exactly. So great if you have got maybe a mixed household where some people eat meat and some people don't. I think they'd be a crowd pleaser for your non-vegans for sure.
Do you think they're better than the Richmond's meat-free sausages?
I haven't tried those.
Oh, haven't you? Oh, I
No.
thought everyone had tried them. Well, they're sort of renowned now as being a lot of people seem to think they're the best. They are very realistic. So I'd be interested to try the Future Farms sausages alongside them.
I'll have to get the Richmond's ones in. I feel like I've missed a major
Yeah.
vegan rite of passage there.
You have. You can't be a real vegan if you haven't had a Richmond meat-free sausage.
I know. What am I doing?
We'll have to give you the sack, Gabriella.
Not real vegan.
So we thought we'd end our news and reviews slot by just talking about any other sort of Veganuary discoveries we've made this month. Is there anything else you've kind of seen in store that's caught your eye?
So I'd say from a brand kind of supermarket perspective, I have been really impressed with how much innovation Marks and Spencer's have brought out. Now, disclaimer, definitely not the most affordable,
Yeah,
but some really innovative, great products. I'm yet to work my way through the ones that I've had my eye on, but things like a fresh baked vegan cookie in the bakery section that caught my eye, and then like a New York style salt beef sandwich with gherkins, mustard.
Oh, wow.
Looks really good. That's had quite a lot of attention on social, so they are going to be on my list of things to try, I think. And then I think I'm probably late to the party because this isn't necessarily new. However, I have tried properly for the first time Nomo chocolate.
Oh, yes. Yeah, not missing out, I think it stands for, doesn't it?
Exactly. So yeah, I think I'm late to the party. Well, I know I am because I know it's hugely popular, but I treated myself to their fruit and nut. I don't think it's got nuts in, actually. I think it's fruit and rice, puffed rice. And I have to say it was probably up there with Vago with the best vegan chocolate I've ever had.
Really?
It was delicious.
Ah, I see. I've tried that one, and I wouldn't put it as I wouldn't say it's as nice as Vega. Is it Vigo?
Yeah.
But my daughter really likes the Nomo ones. I like. I think it's called Tony's. They're huge. I mean, I saw them in Waitrose, and they are mega expensive, about £3.50, but they are big. And we got the fruit and nut one of that with dark chocolate, and that was lovely.
I'll have to give that one a try as well. I think I've tried the maybe the almond and sea salt dark chocolate from there, which was also really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't in no way new, and I'm late to the party with it as well as a vegan, but liquid smoke. I've just discovered it.
Wow.
I can't stop using it in everything. It's amazing.
Tell me more.
So I got it in my local health food shop. I'm not sure if they sell it in supermarkets. I'm sure they must do, but I've never sort of found, I haven't found it in Tesco's or anything before. But yeah, it's kind of like smoked sort of tamari or smoked soy sauce. And so I've started putting it in hummus to make sort of smoked hummus, which is lush.
Wow.
And I also, what else have I put it in? I've put it in chili when I make a bean chili. I've
really
put it
nice.
in scrambled tofu. I've basically just been smoking everything. And it's really good.
Delicious. So nice to have like a new flavor to experiment with as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you can marinate things in it. So I used it with the over Christmas, I did the So Vegan smoked carrots instead of smoked salmon and cream cheese bagels. And I used it on that. So yeah, that was really nice. That recipe actually kind of has like capers in it and dill, and that's really good.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, so that's my sort of product of the month.
There's so much out there. I also tried from Wiki Kitchen in Tesco's. I saw that they had some vegan ice cream flavors. So I tried the mint chocolate one. Really good and so affordable compared to other vegan ice creams. Often when I've looked, it's kind of around £5 for a tub, and this wasn't on offer and was £2.
Oh wow, that's really good.
Yeah, so I know it sounds like all I eat is vegan junk food. I promise I've had lots of chickpeas and lentils and spinach and tofu alongside that. To get through this January lockdown, there has been some sweet treats.
This is it. I think we've just got to go easy on ourselves. I mean, first it was Christmas and now it's lockdown January. So, you know, we'll do all the plant-based healthy eating maybe next month.
Let's see. Let's not commit.
Yeah. Well, you know, we need to be reviewing these products, Gabriella, for our listeners. So we just need to keep going with it.
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, I'll see you this time next week.
Perfect. Have a good week, everybody. See you soon.
Next, I'll be chatting to Shireen Kassam, founder of Plant-Based Health Professionals. So, hi Shireen, how are you today?
No, I'm well, thank you, Holly. Lovely to be able to chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I've just been looking through your very long list of credentials. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess I tell people first that I'm a medical doctor. So I work for the NHS at King's College Hospital, where I'm a consultant haematologist, so looking after patients with lymphoma, which is a type of blood cancer, and also doing diagnostic work, so looking down the microscope and making the diagnosis of various blood cancers. But more recently, I have shifted to doing that part-time, 3.5 days a week, so I can pursue my passion, which is really providing education on plant-based diets. And I have had the opportunity to be working with Winchester University 1 day a week, where I have developed and facilitate a course on plant-based nutrition for healthcare professionals. So this is the second year of running that. And yeah, so that's been really great. And then in my spare time, I am founder and director of a community interest company called Plant-Based Health Professionals UK, which I'm sure we'll come back to in a moment.
Definitely. Yeah, I actually went to Winchester Uni.
Oh!
Yeah, back in, I'm going to show my age now. I'm 42. So it was 97 to 2000 I was there.
Oh, wow, how interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was the same Vice Chancellor there at the time, Joy Carter, but she's vegan. And it was sort of, an introduction from a mutual friend that kind of led to a job and a course. And interesting times to come with them, I hope.
Amazing. I mean, is that the first of its kind then in this country?
Yeah, so obviously there's lots of plant-based education and learning and things, but what I really wanted to do was sort of, with everything that I do, is to kind of infiltrate the conventional, and really wanted a university-based course that could be CPD accredited for health professionals. And yes, from as far as I know, it's the only university-based course for health professionals on the science and evidence supporting plant-based diets it's called for optimal health and well-being, and it's a sustainable diet too, as we know.
Yeah. So what would they do that course before then going on to do further training in medicine?
No, well, it's aimed at sort of the postgraduate healthcare professionals, so GPs, dietitians, nutritionists, physiotherapists, etc., who are qualified, have a degree, have a background in healthcare, but are looking to sort of add to their toolkit, as it were, to be able to use nutrition as a part of their clinical practice. Because more and more we're realizing as healthcare professionals that we're not really addressing the root cause of chronic illness. We're really, as people say, we're a sick care healthcare system. We wait till somebody gets heart disease or type 2 diabetes or cancer, and then we deal with the consequences of what often is poor lifestyle choices. That's not to say that these lifestyle choices are an active choice, because sometimes people don't have a choice, but I think a lot of it comes down to a lack of education, and healthcare professionals are no different. We don't learn much about health promotion, and we certainly don't learn much about a healthy diet. And of course, a healthy diet is not just one that's going to nourish us as humans. It has to be one that's going to sustain the planet beyond 2030. And at the moment, if we carry on the same dietary behaviours as we are now, you know, climate change and ecological crisis is going to make our lives really, really difficult beyond the next 10 years.
Yeah. So is this, I mean, is this, obviously, you know, you're vegan and you're very passionate about this. Is it something that's widely shared throughout the medical profession, or are we just sort of, you know, just at the very, very beginnings of change?
Yeah, well, you know, I think change takes a long time in sort of medical curriculum and also sort of medical practice. You know, it's something like 10 years before, you know, a clinical trial that shows a positive result comes out and it being embedded into clinical practice. So in a similar way, you know, we've known for decades how to keep ourselves healthy, you know, what lifestyle choices and behaviours, including diet, will keep us healthy for longer and prevent chronic disease. And one of those lifestyle measures is a predominantly plant-based diet. So the science has been clear for a long, long time, but I think just sort of shifting sort of societal and cultural norms and medical education just takes a bit longer. So I think the science has been clear. And we just get more and more science added to that same narrative, but just sort of embedding it into people's sort of daily lives and behaviours is the challenge. And I do make the distinction between vegan and plant-based diet. You know, I obviously don't need to tell you that, you know, being vegan is more about a social justice movement, and it certainly doesn't tell me or you what an individual is eating. It just tells us what we're not eating. Yeah. Whereas my course and my education I do is really being honest about the data, which is that we have to stick to a diet that's made up of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts and seeds. Now, does it have to be 100%? Well, probably not, but you need to be 85 to 90% plant-based to gain the health benefits and also to have the knock-on effects on environmental sustainability. But I also make it perfectly clear that if your choice is to be 100% plant-based diet, you can be certain that that is good for your health and will keep you in good health for, you know, if you do it well, for a long time, hopefully.
Yeah, it's I mean, so what led you to go plant-based then? Was it all the evidence that you were kind of reading up on?
Yeah, no, so I became vegan in the true sense of vegan back in 2013, having been vegetarian since about 2001. But suddenly, you know, I realized that eating dairy and eggs was no longer aligned with my ethics. So I'm an ethical vegan. But then it was the sort of knock-on effect of researching what a healthy diet, a healthy vegan diet would look like for myself, and coming across the medical evidence to support a plant-based diet in whatever fashion we decide to call a plant-based diet. So 100% plant-based being vegan, and, you know, predominantly plant-based, you know, kind of the flexitarian approach to things. So I was overwhelmed by all the evidence that was supporting this as a healthy diet pattern. You know, I didn't have to sacrifice my personal health for my ethical beliefs. And I then sort of realized that nobody in the UK was really providing education on this area, specifically for healthcare professionals. You know, I was getting most of my education from the US, you know, from organizations we love and have done great work in the US, like PCRM and the Plantrition Project. And all my kind of go-to gurus were people like Neil Barnard and Brenda Davis from Canada. And so they were dominating the education. And you know what the UK is like. We're a bit suspicious when it's not a UK NHS doctor talking about these things. So that's where plant-based health professionals came from. You know, we have a mission to provide evidence-based education on healthy plant-based diets for healthcare professionals. But of course, you know, the general public are equally as interested, if not more. And ultimately, we hope to be able to influence policy, because there's so much noise and misinformation still out there. And I think there needs to be a credible NHS body that provides information for those who are willing to make the transition to a healthy plant-based diet.
Definitely. Is that something you're kind of working towards then?
Well, I mean, clearly we comment on all the sort of documents that come out that ask for feedback on policy and things. But, that's the difficult part to infiltrate, isn't it? To actually have an impact where the policymakers and government are enacting policy. And sadly, I mean, I think it's quite clear that even though the government might sort of, support healthy diets and, understand the data supporting plant-based diets, their actions are quite contradictory. If you just think that in the first lockdown, the government spent £1 million of taxpayers' money promoting milk consumption. I think the campaign was called Milk the Moment. And consumers are not drinking dairy for a reason. So why are we promoting something that A, is not necessary for human health? It excludes communities of colour because we're often lactose intolerant, and it's damaging the environment. And then, recently the EU, thankfully we're not part of this, but the EU is supporting a campaign called Beefitarian, promoting beef as part of a healthy, balanced diet. And so at the moment, the government and policymakers' actions do not seem to be aligned with public health policy nor environmental policy.
Yeah. So, I mean, how can we get on board? We go to the website. What your kind of listeners who are frustrated like you are and myself, what can we do to, try and implement change?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we need to build a strong network of like-minded people. It doesn't have to be health professionals. Just, I think this is a grassroots movement. All social change, all policy change comes because people demand it. And as consumers, we have a lot of power. We don't have to buy dairy milk. We don't have to buy red meat and processed meat in the supermarket. So I think we need to firstly educate ourselves, really understand what a healthy plant-based diet is, make sure we are happy and able to dispel all these myths, and then use our voice and our actions to influence the market forces, because at the end of the day, as we know, the food industry will provide us with food and drinks that we are actually demanding. So I think we do have a lot of power in the individual. I think we need to build a network to have a strong voice in terms of making a fuss about these policies. So what I've tried to do is that Plant-Based Health Professionals is a membership organisation. Membership fees is nominal, but of course we all need a little bit of money to keep things like the website going and develop our fact sheets and put on our fortnightly webinars. So there's a nominal fee, and join as a member, and then as a group we can really use our power to enact change. So we're up to 600 members just within 2 years of membership without much advertising. But if there's anyone listening, join as a member, support our work, use our fact sheets, and most of our education is free. So just promote it. You as an individual can download all our fact sheets from the website, give them to your healthcare professionals, give them to your friends and colleagues, and say, this is an evidence-based movement. It's not a woo-woo science anymore.
Yeah.
And if we want to impact human and planetary health, there is no choice. We have to shift to a healthy plant-based diet.
I find it very frustrating when I go. I mean, I don't go to the doctors hardly ever since going vegan, actually. But when I do go, or when I take my daughter, who's 14 and vegan, I sometimes find, I must I'm sort of admitting this now, that I avoid telling them that we're vegan, because often, I mean, my mum tried going vegan. She's vegetarian, and she had terrible heartburn. So, and it was sort of, becoming a bit of an issue. So she went to the doctors, told them that she'd stopped having dairy milk and, had gone vegan. And they said, well, that's probably what it is then. And, and it's just crazy that you're almost hiding the fact that you're being really healthy from a GP.
No, I know. It's so sad because, we, as healthcare professionals, we have such credibility, and you know, with that and with the amount of education comes quite a lot of you know, being self-assured. You know, if I think back to 7 years ago, before I'd even discovered all this information, you know, I might have come up with such nonsense as well, because, you know, you learn to have this exterior self-confidence and always want to tell people what might be causing their illness, even if you don't have the knowledge. But I mean, I would, you know, hope that people wouldn't be making such judgments about a vegan diet, because as you know, it's our kind of meat-based, saturated fat heavy diet that is probably a greater cause of heartburn than a vegan diet. And clearly telling somebody that you're vegan doesn't tell you what they're eating. So I mean, I don't know what your mum was doing, whether, you know, it was a healthy vegan diet or there were some tweaks to make, but it's just a shame that somebody who probably isn't vegan, so doesn't know the data, hasn't really taken the time to update themselves, then passes a judgment which you know, discourages somebody from making a good conscious decision about their diet.
So with your patients, I know you specialize in, it's cancer patients, isn't it? So do you kind of tell them to start eating a plant-based diet? Do you help them transition?
Yeah, so you know, of course, when you give somebody a diagnosis of cancer, in my case it's for lymphoma, you know, everyone asks, well, what can I do? What can make a difference? You know, and life is made very easy for me now. You know, if you look at the World Cancer Research Fund guidelines on cancer prevention, on using diet and physical activity, and these recommendations are the same for anyone that's had a diagnosis of cancer. It's quite clear. There's 9 recommendations, and one of them says eat a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans. And to me, that's a predominantly plant-based diet. It says avoid red meat and processed meats, avoid sugar-sweetened beverages, you know, and all the unhealthy processed foods. So, you know, the science is quite clear and it's written down in guidelines. So I tell people, you know, clearly eating a predominantly plant-based diet is optimal for cancer, you know, the cancer journey and for improving survival after a diagnosis of cancer. Now, obviously for lymphoma, which is quite a rare cancer, there isn't any direct evidence that, you know, diet causes lymphoma, of course not. But I think, you know, we're in a lucky position where a lot of lymphoma patients with lymphoma can be cured, and then in the long term the risks are things like cardiovascular disease and second cancer. So I think where it comes into its own is, you know, thinking about improving survivorship and quality of life following on from the cancer treatments that I deliver. So, you know, just keeping well after cancer. And again, you know, nobody's going to dispute that a healthy plant-predominant, plant-strong diet. And I don't use the word vegan because it's the wrong word to use, and it's nothing to do with my patients' care, but I'm telling them what the science and the general recommendations for a healthy diet. And if you look at even the Eat Well guide, you know, the UK's dietary guidelines, 2/3 of it is you know, plant-based, and it clearly says choose beans over meat for your plant protein, and it demonstrates that you can have soya and dairy alternatives, for example. And you know, dairy is not a food group as such; it's just a food that's part of the plate, but not a necessary component.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, do people kind of follow that then? Do they, you know, switch their diet or?
Yeah, I think, you know, we see a spectrum of people in the NHS, as you might imagine, and at King's College Hospital, where I'm in South East London, clearly there's a spectrum of socioeconomic sort of class as well. So you've got some quite wealthy areas like Dulwich, and then you've got some less wealthy areas in an immigrant population, sort of the Camberwell area. And, you know, people's immediate concerns are very different. So, you know, somebody, immigrant whose visa is precarious, whose livelihood, you know, depends on them turning up to work and me telling them that they've got a diagnosis of cancer that requires them to have 6 months off work. You know, their priorities are very different, and food insecurity is a real issue. So, you know, it may not be a choice, you know, if you're going to food banks, etc., to suddenly think that a plant-based diet is going to be possible for that individual. Whereas, you know, somebody coming from a higher economic background will already know the basics. There's nobody's going to dispute that fruits and vegetables are good for you and all that sort of thing, and they're going to be the kind of green smoothie drinking person. So I think everyone's at a different spectrum. I give people information, I tell them to come back to me with their questions, I send, give them information about local support groups and things. But most people are discharged back to their GP. We discharge them after a couple of years of follow-up, and so it's difficult to know for certain the long-term impact. And as you say, if they go back to a GP who's going to say, well, start drinking dairy again, then it's all that good work is undone. So it's difficult to know. But sadly, we know that only 28% of UK adults are actually eating 5 portions of fruits and vegetables a day. So we've got a long way to go, and I suspect my patients are no different.
Some of the research you've taken part in, can you tell us about that? Was there some research about chemotherapy?
Well, yeah, so I did do a PhD during my training, and looking back on it, it seems a bit sort of a coincidence that it actually was a sort of nutrition-based project that I did, because at the time I didn't really have any interest at all in nutrition, but I was working with a cancer pharmacology group at Bart's Cancer Centre, and they had an interest in looking at high doses of selenium, which is, a micronutrient found in food, and its impact on enhancing the effects of chemotherapy. And there'd already been a bit of data in the setting of solid tumour treatments, but I was investigating whether there could be a role of adding high doses of selenium to standard chemotherapy for lymphoma. So I mainly did sort of the lab side of things. To be clear, I wasn't doing animal experiments. I was doing experiments using cells derived from human cancers. And looking at the sort of in laboratory effects of adding high doses of selenium, and the data looked encouraging, but it reflects the sad state of science at the moment, actually, and that we geared up to do a clinical trial, so putting patients with lymphoma on high doses of selenium during cancer treatment, and we'd got funding from Cancer Research UK, and we teamed up with a nutraceutical company to give us the selenium and form. But as it turned out, that company wasn't able to provide the funding for indemnity that was needed, that a pharmaceutical company would be able to provide and have the backing to do. And so it sort of fell flat and never actually got off the ground. And so it's very difficult as an investigator to enact a clinical study without the help of big pharma, and big pharma have their own questions to answer. Nobody's really interested in making a buck out of nutraceuticals at the end of the day. But having said that, I think I've realized that you really can't take the nutrient out of food and think that you're going to have an amazing impact, because studies before have shown that, for example, taking high doses of selenium to try and prevent prostate cancer actually didn't have an effect and might increase the risk of type 2 diabetes, and high doses of vitamin E increase the risk of lung cancer. So you have to stick with the whole food, and when it comes to nutrients, it's best to get them from your diet, because high doses in purified form has sort of off-target effects that are often unpredictable.
Right. So what's selenium found in? Is it Brazil nuts?
Yeah. So you can get your daily requirement from 1 to 2 Brazil nuts a day. So it's a good sort of add-on to the healthy plant-based diet when you're having your portion of nuts, to have 1 or 2 Brazil nuts in your handful.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, thank you so much for chatting to us. What are your hopes for the future?
Yeah, well, I hope that we as a healthcare community come together and use diet and nutrition as a tool for helping patients become healthy, and achieve optimal health and well-being, because the sad state of affairs is that the last 12 years of our lives in the UK are spent in ill health, and it's really not necessary, because 80% of those chronic illnesses could be addressed through healthy diet and lifestyle. And I really hope that that information is taken on board by policymakers, because we need to make healthy, nutritious food accessible and affordable to all communities, regardless of their educational and financial backgrounds. And I think we're failing on those two aspects. And in addition, I hope that with all the noise being made about climate and ecological crisis, that we follow the science, and the science says that unless we move to a predominantly plant-based diet, there is going to be no hope for us. And we've been told, we've been warned, so we can all act as individuals and make that shift.
Yeah. Just one more point. What, as a vegan, how do you feel about the sort of huge array of processed vegan food that's kind of hitting the shelves, especially in Veganuary? There's so many new launches.
I know. I'm a bit suspicious and I'm not a big fan. I can see a place for transition, the real sort of the person who really loves the taste of meat and, otherwise wouldn't consider giving up meat unless there was a sort of similar substitute. I think there's a role, but we know what's going to happen. If everyone shifts to a processed food vegan diet, our health problems are going to remain the same. I mean, yes, we will help the environment, and yes, we will help the animals. And as a vegan, I can only endorse that. But I think the dark side of it is that industry is just making a buck out of us. It's just fueling the same capitalist model. And these vegan products are expensive, and it's kind of also fueling that myth that the people say, oh, well, it's expensive because your plant-based burger or pseudo meat burger is, going to be 30% more expensive. Well, yeah, it is. But the point is, you don't even need to be eating those foods. And an actual healthy plant-based diet made from whole plant foods, from raw ingredients, is actually really cheap. So I'm on the fence. For me, I don't advocate the use of it, because I think for human health and as a health professional, we know that processed and ultra processed food is harmful to human health. But do I indulge now and again? Of course I do. It's lovely to have some vegan cheese, etc. It's just we need to use it in small quantities, and not get addicted like we were addicted to the usual processed foods.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm attempting to do whole food plant-based Veganuary, because on the podcast we did quite a lot of taste tests in the run up to Christmas, which did involve the pseudo meats and things like that, trifles and all sorts of kind of naughty foods. So yeah, I'm attempting to try and get back, because when I first went vegan, I did go plant-based whole food, and I felt fantastic, but it's a slippery sort of slope, isn't it? Kind of off the right path. So yeah,
it's convenient, and cooking from scratch can take a bit longer than obviously just heating up a burger or a sausage or a lasagna or whatever. Anyway, but we've got some lovely recipes on our website that you might be encouraged to try some new things. And we also hold fortnightly webinars. We've got one tonight that will keep you motivated, because as I say, we all need reinforcement that for the reason as to why we're doing it. If you want to keep healthy, etc., then clearly a whole food plant-based diet rather than a processed plant-based diet will definitely be the best option for you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I'd encourage all listeners and myself, I'll be heading over to the Plant-Based Health Professionals website, and I think I'll become a member.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Oh, thanks, Holly, and thanks for having me on.